most single men will waste the next 5 years chasing a fairy tale about women. So in this video, you'll learn the truth behind the fairy tale and the decision you must make to make the next 5 years the best 5 years of your life.
Lord have mercy. We must stay focused, brothers. We must stay focused.
So here's the fairy tale you've believed in your entire adult life and will waste the next 5 years chasing if you don't watch this video to the end and wake up to reality. Once upon a time, there was a young man who wasn't the tallest or the best looking or the richest in the kingdom, but he was a good man. He was hardworking, honest and loyal, and he had a lot of love to give. One enchanted evening, as he walked home from work, he met the one. And it was love at first sight. She was a beautiful woman. At least she was beautiful in his eyes, who really got him. She laughed at his jokes, she shared his taste in films, music and TV shows, and she was the first girl he'd ever met that really saw and appreciated him for the good, hardworking, honest, loyal man he was. And to top it all off, she had lovely tits and a fat, juicy ass. Finally, he could quit the humiliating nightmare of the dating apps and cold approach forever, because he has found the one, his dream girl, his unicorn, the love of his life, and they're going to settle down together, have a bunch of kids, and live happily ever after. The reason the vast majority of men in the modern world believe in this fairy tale is because A, we're all culturally conditioned to believe it by our gynocentric society, which pedestalizes women and brainwashes men to believe that your value is based on your ability to gain a woman's approval and validation to the extent that she will let you fuck her regularly.
That's not ridiculous. That's not ridiculous to say that.
And B, thanks to 60 years of female supremacy, aka feminism, most men were raised by a feminist mother and a weak father, and or a feminist single mother who inevitably projected her hatred of men and her resentment towards the chads who pumped and dumped her onto the son or sons of the beta male simp she had to settle for when she hit the wall and her body clock started ticking.
No. Wait.
Yes. Your mama used to be a hoe, now she goes to Costco. There's so much about her that you don't know. She's partied all night, she's even done blow. How'd you think she snagged your dad? It's not how she drives that minivan. It's not her muffins or casserole. Your mama used to be a hoe.
That's not ridiculous. That's not ridiculous to say that.
Modern mothers like this are simply incapable of giving their sons the unconditional mother love boys need to truly accept, love, and value themselves. So these boys grow up with a void inside them where mother love should have been. That void is felt as a deep sense of lack that in their mind can only be filled by the love, approval, and validation of a woman. Because, of course, this boy in a man's body is projecting his unrequited love of his mother onto women he is attracted to and seeing those women through the rose-colored glasses that he saw his mother through as a child.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Yes.
So now you know why you believe the fairy tale of finding the one. I'll let Stardust outline the reality of how you really feel about women when you take those rose-colored mother wound glasses off. And after that, I'll explain the one decision you need to make in order for the next 5 years to be the best 5 years of your life.
One of the more interesting accusations that inkwells receive, and men more broadly, if they haven't been very successful with women, is that the lack of success is what sort of spurs on their so-called misogyny, which is to say, men in such cases don't like women because they're just not very successful with women in general overall. Now, on the face of it, this argument seems to hold some water. There have been studies and surveys conducted, and it does seem to be the case that men who are, quote unquote, more successful with women tend to have more positive attitudes towards women. But I thought it might be worth considering and examining some of these claims and some of these notions, because although it is potentially true that a lack of success with whatever it might be, it doesn't need to be women, can breed resentment and a sense of antagonism, it doesn't have to necessarily be the case. Now, there are studies, as I've said, that show that attitudes towards women tend to vary between men based on their relative success with women. Now, broadly speaking, a lot of these studies just show what we already know, such as the women are wonderful effect, which is pretty known to most of you, I imagine, but basically the perception that women are just more pleasant and, generally speaking, better human beings. That's the women are wonderful effect. And of course, amongst women, you have this in-group bias, which is well documented. This bias that women have towards their own group, their own in-group, that is, women, is 4.5 times higher, according to some studies, than the preferences that men might have for their own group. But let's get to the crux of this issue. It's claimed, according to some studies and surveys and people in general, that the reason why men have negative or nasty attitudes towards women is because they're just not very successful. Now, in some of these surveys, it's very interesting, or studies, it's stated that men who have more sex with women tend to have more positive associations with women. And here's the thing I really want to examine here, the crux of the issue, if you will. It all comes down to what you regard as positive feelings, right? If positive feelings simply come down to you like to stick your pee-pee in the vajayjay and blow your load, well, I guess in that sense, maybe everyone is right. By definition, an inkwell is not getting laid, and him not getting laid would prevent him from, quote unquote, having positive associations with women. And likewise, Chad, who's constantly boinking women, must have some very positive associations with women. But here's the thing I don't really get. Positive associations with women does not mean that you like women, that you like hanging out with women, or that you even enjoy exchanges with women. Specifically and strictly in this context, all it means is you like copulating with women. That's your positive association. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the greatest lamentations of womankind is that men use them for sex, that men use them to copulate, that men use them as basically cum rags. Most women will say they don't want to be used exclusively for their bodies and exclusively for the purposes of coitus. Now, once you throw that wrench into this equation, things become a little bit more complicated because, like I said, the desire to have sex, whether you're executing on that desire or not, is something separate from your appreciation of the person as a whole. So nominally on the surface, sure, an inkwell might be quote unquote misogynistic because he's not getting laid, and Chad might quote unquote not be misogynistic and love women because he's screwing women, 7 times a week. That's entirely possible, but it doesn't really get down to the nuts and bolts of the argument. As always, gentlemen, the devil is in the details. I find this question fascinating because this is going to be all anecdotal from here on out because we don't have studies to attest to this, but I can tell you from my own many, many observations over many decades of life, interactions with both men and women, I can tell you 100% that I have known Chads and Chad Lights who've had copious amounts of success with women, i.e. they've gotten their pee-pee wet many times. They stuck their pee-pees in many vajayjays, and many of them didn't seem to have very, quote-unquote, positive associations with women. And I think we can actually look at a very extreme example in the contemporary sense right now. Andrew Tate. Now, Andrew Tate is not a traditional Chad or Chad Light, but he certainly has status max, so to speak. Andrew Tate is popular and wealthy And we know he has multiple children, allegedly, at least that's what he claims. He certainly has had many, many experiences with women of carnal nature. And if you were to look at Andrew Tate, would you say that he has positive associations with women? Because that's the argument being made here. Men who have carnal success with women on a more regular basis have more positive associations with women and actually like their company. That's the implication, right? I don't think Andrew Tate, or his brother Tristan for that matter, particularly like women. In fact, if you believe the rumors, and who knows, I don't think it's ever been verified, that he's basically running a kind of operation employing women to do certain types of, how should we say, activities, that's the opposite of an indication that he quote unquote respects women and likes them in any real human sense. Obviously, it's an extreme example, but I have known, like I said, Chads and Chadlites, not many because Chads are rare, but a bunch of Chadlites who had plenty of success with women. They were in long-term committed relationships. And frequently, they would tell me, they would complain to me, look, I like boinking her, she's hot, but I hate just about everything else. I hate talking to her. I don't like putting up with her nonsense. I don't like putting up with her demands. It's annoying. She's crazy, this, that, and the third, right?
Can you say that again? Just the way you said it.
Look, I like boinking her, she's hot, but I hate just about everything else. I hate talking to her. I don't like putting up with her nonsense. I don't like putting up with her demands. It's annoying. She's crazy, this, that, and the third, right? Of course! So you listen to this, and quite the opposite of the impression you're supposed to get according to studies, surveys, and claims. No, these men don't really like hanging out with the women. They don't like the personhood of the women. What they like is the woman is hot, and they get to stick their pee-pee inside the woman.
Well, no fucking shit.
Again, most women, at least nominally, they claim that, don't want to simply be used as carnal objects. So this is where the rubber meets the road. I don't think negative feelings or perceptions of women are necessarily linked simply to having a lack of intercourse with the women. Unless you want to reduce it down to just that, yes, you like women because you like having sex with them. I don't think that accounts for the totality of a person. There are plenty of men I like a lot, that I consider almost brothers, that I have a lot in common with, that I appreciate as people, although I have absolutely no desire to have intercourse with them. That's really what I'm talking about here. If you want to spend time with someone, talk to them, have interesting conversational exchanges, engage in hobbies, activities, engage in sport, go hiking, that sort of thing, that would tell me much more readily that you like the person on the whole, as opposed to merely saying you like to stick your thing in the hole. And I don't frankly see a huge difference when I observe people, when I talk to them, between men with almost no success to middling success to a ton of success when it comes to their actual appreciation of the feminine being, of women, of talking to them, of having exchanges with them. Most of them find it very taxing, annoying, and stressful. And when they're in long-term relationships, this is when it comes to the fore the strongest. They make that very, very clear in the moments they're allowed to, obviously. And I've been on the receiving end of many such conversations, as I've said, where it's very clear that, yeah, the guy likes boinking the chick, but let's be honest, he doesn't really like the chick as a person.
Can you say that again? Just the way you said it.
And when they're in long-term relationships, this is when it comes to the fore the strongest. They make that very, very clear. Yeah, the guy likes boinking the chick, but let's be honest,
He doesn't really like the chick as a person.
Oh, there's a big surprise. That's an incredible. I think I'm going to have a heart attack and die from that surprise.
Now, obviously, it is possible. Some men also like the personalities of their wives or girlfriends and the women that they're together with. Certainly the case. But broadly speaking, the claim that having sex with lots of women equates to liking women and quote unquote not being misogynistic is pretty silly all in all. Now, for better or worse, there's certain social guardrails, preventative measures that prevent men from speaking honestly about what they think about women, right? Because let's be honest, it is super, super taboo to say, well, I don't really actually like hanging out with women. I don't really enjoy their personalities, their tastes, their interests. If you were to say that publicly, say at a job, right, you would be fired in all likelihood. You would certainly be ostracized within friend circles. If you said, well, I don't really like hanging out with women. I prefer hanging out with my guy friends. Women do X, Y, and Z, and they kind of annoy me, and I'm just not very interested in that. And I don't have a lot in common with them. That would garner you almost certainly shunning, and you would be ostracized by your friend group as well if they're a bunch of normies. So it's not like, to add some fuel to the fire, men participating in certain surveys or studies are necessarily going to be honest, because let's keep it a buck. You cannot be honest about your feelings about all kinds of things in the current day and time. And you certainly can't be honest about your feelings concerning women. You can't say, well, I don't really think I have a lot in common with women. I don't really enjoy their company. If you were to just say, I mean, very bluntly, upfront, say, look, what I like about women is I like their holes or something. Or what I like about women is I like copulating with women. I mean, you can say that, but that is going to merit you a lot of blowback, almost certainly. Possible firing from the job, possible rejection within friend groups or what have you. Of course, if you are a Chad, you could say that and women would still be interested in you, right? I mean, obviously, looks are going to play a massive role here. But broadly speaking, even if you're just a Chad light or a normal guy and you make a claim like that, sure. So I don't think it holds a lot of traction. I think that the desire to have sex with women, to copulate with them, is almost wholly independent from your attitude and your perception and your feelings about women in their entirety. You know, their personalities, their interests, their mannerisms. It has nothing to do with that.
Correct. Thank you.
Now, what Stardust or Thinking Ape explained brilliantly there is something that is blatantly obvious to a man such as myself that has lots of experience with women over a long period of time. I've slept with over 100 women over 5 decades. And what is obvious to a man like me, a MGTOW monk I am now, I've been MGTOW monk for 4 years, what's obvious to a man like me is that if women didn't have holes for you to stick your pee-pee in, most men would spend 0 time with women.
That's not ridiculous. That's not ridiculous to say that.
Women are not good people. They are not good company. They are not likable.
Damn!
How can you say that, Paradox? That's so misogynistic. Is it? Now, we all know, and any man that spent any amount of time with women know that women are generally children in adults' bodies. I think they're infants in adults' bodies. I think that most women's emotional and mental development is arrested around 4 or 5. That is the age that most women in this culture are spoilt at. And remember, when vegetables are spoilt, they become rotten. When milk is spoilt, it becomes rancid. And that is exactly what it means when a girl is spoilt. She becomes a rancid, rotten person. Someone we know, when they hit sort of their mid-30s, post-wall, they become what we know as Karens. That's what a Karen is. A Karen is a girl that was spoilt. And a modern woman in general is a Karen in waiting. They're all Karens. When you actually get down to it, they've got rotten, rancid personalities. Why do I say that? Well, think about a spoilt brat princess. Think about a spoilt 4 to 5 year old girl. What are the characteristics of such a being? They are completely self-absorbed, solipsistic, and selfish. Now, do you know a woman that is not that? They are also, this spoilt brat 4-year-old princess is also an emotional reasoner, meaning that she thinks with her feelings, meaning that if it makes her feel bad, it's wrong and false. And if it makes her feel good, it's right and true. Aren't adult women just like that? Don't they think with their feelings? Aren't they emotional reasoners? Of course they are. And the third thing about the spoilt brat is that she is a perpetual victim, Nothing is ever her fault. If you're a little bratty princess, a 4-year-old bratty princess, nothing is ever your fault. You never take accountability and you blame everything on someone else. Again, isn't an adult modern woman like that? Of course she is. So in effect, spending time with a modern woman is the equivalent of spending time with a spoilt brat, a princess, a 4-year-old girl. And obviously, no man in his right mind wants to spend time, and it'd be creepy as well, obviously, but wants to spend time with a 4-year-old spoilt bratty princess. And that is, in effect, what modern women are, and so they are just wholly unlikable. So, what is the reason that so many men are so desperate to do exactly that? Spend time with them, be in relationships with them, marry them. I explained it at the beginning. The cultural conditioning and the mother wound.
What the fuck is that?
Projecting our unrequited love of our mothers onto these women.
Oh, I see.
And that's how we avoid seeing the truth that they are spoilt bratty princesses that you wouldn't want to spend 1 second with if it weren't for the fact that you wanted to stick your pee-pee in them. This is why men ignore red flags, because of the cultural conditioning and the projection of the mother wound, which means that you see the woman through rose-coloured glasses and you ignore all the red flags. You ignore the horrible personality. You ignore the amorality. You ignore the moronic emotional reasoning. You ignore the disgusting lack of accountability and responsibility and perpetual victimhood. You ignore all those things because you're projecting your mother wound onto them. If men weren't projecting their mother wound onto women, there would be very, very few long-term relationships. All men would be bad boys, and they can't be chads, but all men would be bad boys. They would figure out how to fool them, fuck them, and forget them. Because they would only want the sex. And that's pretty much the truth. That's the truth. I know it's controversial to say it, but generally speaking, and I'm talking about modern women here, women of the past actually had humility and grace and were pleasant to be around. They were, not all, but a good proportion of women prior to feminism, female supremacy, were pleasant. They had humility, they had appreciation for men, they had grace and, femininity. And you could actually just like a woman just for being a woman. The feminine is actually very pleasant when it's not corrupted by 60 years of female supremacy. And if you want to understand just how corrupting feminism is, first of all, you have to call it what it is, female supremacy, and then look at white supremacists. They're the most famous supremacists that we know. And everyone knows a white supremacist is arrogant, mean, nasty, looks down their noses at people who aren't white, and feels justified in treating people who aren't white like shit. And that's exactly how female supremacists are. Women that have been corrupted by feminism are arrogant, mean, look down their noses at men, and feel completely justified in treating men like shit.
Exhibit 1.
This man and this woman, husband and wife, they're having a party. They've been married for a couple years, and the guy's stepkid, her kid, they're at the party. Everybody's having a good time or whatever, and he's giving relationship advice to some of their friends. And she comes over and says, don't take relationship advice from him. And he thinks she's playing around and says, well, it got me you, didn't it? And he gives her a kiss or whatever. And she says, the only reason you got me is because I was recently divorced, scared, and I had a kid. Damn. And basically he was a safe choice. And he goes silent. Right? And I mean, I don't know. That would be so freaking devastating. Okay. But a couple days later, she realizes how silent and how affected he is. And she tries apologizing. He said, I'll be okay. And then like 2 weeks later, she's starting to get into panic because he will not talk to her. He won't do anything. She starts cooking his favorite foods, trying to do all the things that he likes, even goes so far as to have their kids go stay at her parents' house. And then she takes him somewhere that was important to them. And they go stay a couple nights there. And then when they come back, he goes to work for a couple days. He comes back. As soon as he walks in the door, he said, can you sit down on the couch for a second? Sits down and said, we're done. we're getting a divorce.
Good job, my brother. We rocking with you.
And she tried everything. She begged him not to go. She said, I love you now. I'm so sorry. Blah, blah, blah. I actually side with the guy on this.
You don't say.
When it comes to men, us women place guys into 3 categories. The first category is the guy that we meet and we instantly just want. The sexual chemistry is high. We don't care what they do or how much they make, they are getting it. The second type is the guy that, he's okay. He's maybe not that good looking, but he's willing to spend money. He's going to pay our bills. He's going to buy us nice things. He's going to take us on all the dinner dates. But is he the one? No. Is sexual chemistry high? Or mid, probably. And then there's a third guy. The third guy doesn't have a shot in hell. There is nothing that he can do. There is no amount of money that he can make that would make us want him. He is a no right off the bat. Am I lying or am I telling the truth?
Not one word of a lie, 100% facts. And we men thank you and the ex-wife in the previous story for saying the quiet part out loud. The problem is the guys that you instantly want are wanted by all women, so they don't settle down, which means that 90% of husbands and boyfriends fall into category 2. They are not your first choice. And that's why divorce rates are so high. And that's why wives cheating is so common. And that's why an estimated 25% of men are unknowingly raising another man's child. So to my brothers in category 2 who are second choice and treated as such, and to my brothers in category 3 who are simply ignored, invisible, and not chosen, if you would like to discover how to live a rich, meaningful, and fulfilling life without a woman in it, click the link and check out the Hero's Journey Brotherhood explainer video. The only reason that those kind of women have boyfriends and have husbands is because the boyfriends and husbands are conditioned by our gynocentric society to believe that that is the only way to be valued as a man. To be a real man is to get a girlfriend or a wife. And those husbands and boyfriends are projecting their unrequited love of their mother onto these women and seeing them through rose-colored glasses and not even realizing that these women are abusing them and treating them like shit, because to them it's their mum and you will forgive your mum anything. And you'll look at all these men that stick with these horrible girlfriends who are cheating on them and treating them like shit and disrespecting them left, right and center, and horrible wives that go on the internet humiliating and embarrassing them and emasculating them. Horrible, horrible wives, yet the men stick with them. Yeah, you're going to say it's because they don't want to be divorced, but 30% of divorces are filed by men. Some men have the balls and backbone to leave women that abuse them. The men that don't, it's not just because they don't want to be divorce raped, it's because they've got no balls. Damn! Because they literally perceive their wives in exactly the same way they perceived their mothers before their balls had dropped.
Now listen! That's called motherfucking bars, nigga! You know nothing about that!
In other words, as these goddesses that they couldn't live without. And they need the love and approval and validation of their wives because they didn't get that love, approval and validation from their mothers. It's a deep psychological issue. And that brings me to the single decision that you have to make if you want to not waste the next 5 years of your life and if you want them to become the best 5 years of your life. This is the decision you have to make.
Kill the boy, Jon Snow. Winter is almost upon us. Kill the boy and let the man be born.
You have to decide if you're going to continue to allow your perceptions and your choices to be driven by the wounded little boy inside you that's still looking for his mother's love 10, 20, 30, 40 years after he stopped being a little boy. You have to decide whether you have the courage and intelligence to kill the personification of lack, the personification of need that wounded little boy is.
That's not ridiculous. That's not ridiculous to say that.
So that your perceptions of women and the choices that you make around women are driven by logic and reason and intelligence and experience and the evidence of your own eyes, rather than the lack and need of that wounded little boy.
Yes! Yes!
Make it so.
If you choose to kill the little boy, you'll need help. You'll need the help of a community of your brothers. You'll need the help of a mentor that has done that for himself. That's me, and has helped other men to do it. For that community and that mentorship, click the link in the description and check out the explainer video for the Hero's Journey Brotherhood. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.